This is going to be difficult. It's June 10th, 2025. It's a Tuesday, and it's 2:56 p.m. My name is Ben Petty, and I'm making this video for two reasons. One of them is solely for me, so if you're not me, don't watch it. And the other one is that I'm starting to see the value in having a small but dedicated audience as an artist, which I don't have right now, and I'm starting to feel like I might need to start cultivating. This is very strange for me, just being myself in front of the camera. I do a lot of acting, but actually being me is kind of weird and vulnerable. But I'm making this because I think to hype myself up a little bit in this sort of life that I've chosen, and also just to discuss the creative life and choosing art and creativity as sort of a direction in life, as opposed to a steady job or money or anything like that. I'm 22 years old. I've been out of university for about a year and a half, and I find myself lately, I've been thinking and panicking a lot about money and the future, which I think is also connected to the fact that I think and panic about a lot of things in the future in general. I can be very neurotic about that kind of stuff. And I think that it's important to remember that if you've chosen a form of art as sort of a North Star in life, then, to use David Lynch's words, if you've chosen to live the art life, I think that it means that you are looking for something beyond just a paycheck and sort of the basic things that life has to offer. I don't think people that, it's my belief that I don't think people that choose a life that is centered around art find as much meanings in what money can buy beyond making more art. I think that there's a deeper kind of longing. I mean, I definitely feel like I approach it almost religiously. I think it was David Bowie who said, like,
Oh, I'm David Bowie. I live down the road. Oh.
He was talking about music, but he was saying, you get into this stuff to understand, and this isn't verbatim, but to understand yourself and how you fit into the world better. And so I do a lot of creating. I want to be a filmmaker and an actor first and foremost, but I also do like music and poetry and stuff. And I like having days based around that kind of work. I've sort of developed a bit of a routine around it. And I think that there's sort of multiple steps to living this art life and living it successfully, and like building the discipline to do art is one thing, and to practice every day, to have that dedicated studio time, without interruption. I think that's one thing. But then the sort of next step is figuring out how to live off that stuff. And I watched a video recently with featuring an art gallery owner. It was about a 10-year-old video, but a lot of the stuff still seemed to apply. And he's like a New York art gallery owner, and I think he was a lecturer too at maybe like Tisch or one of those universities. And he was saying that he sincerely believes that every artist can make a living off of their work, and that like there is enough money and there is enough ways to figure that out. But what it comes down to is you can't spend all of your time just being an artist. You have to spend, I don't know about 50% of it, but you have to spend a decent chunk of it working on strategy and promotion and exposure. And I'm not very good at that stuff, but I'm learning. Here we are. And I think that ultimately every person who creates anything feels, I think especially if they feel their own potential towards whatever they're inclined to create. I think that there's always going to be a level of insecurity around that. And so what I've been practicing lately is just showing work regardless of whether or not it's good. And I think a lot of the stuff I'm making now is, it's always better than it was a week ago, but it is sort of separating yourself from the work and treating it as a thing and just putting it out there. And I did that recently with a short film I made. It was my first sort of short film out of uni. And I look back at it now and there are cool elements, but it feels like stabbing myself watching it again, mostly because of like the writing, the core of it. I think I've improved so much since then that it makes me kind of like, I don't really want to look back, which I don't think is a very helpful strategy moving forward. This is going to be very rambly, but the circling back for a minute. One thing that I've been thinking a lot about money lately and how to get money and how to keep money and how to make money doing any of this stuff. And that mindset has caused me to panic and second guess pretty relentlessly over the past year about this work. Now, there's something about this creative work that is pulling me. I mean, an example of this right now is I've been, for the past probably 4 months, I've been writing a feature film, along with other things, but like a lot of my time I've been putting into this feature film. And in reality, I can't afford to make this feature film. It's near impossible to get the actors of like the caliber I want to be in this, or the sets, or anything like that. Am I in focus? Yeah. The skill and general plausibility to make this thing happen is near impossible. And yet, there's something in it that's making me return to it. And it is that thing of like, I know that I have to make short films. I know that I have to sort of work my way up to that. But I think that that's a clear sort of sign of what it is this work kind of means to us. It's something that's beyond reality. And I think that if you care enough about something and if you love it enough, you can figure out how to make it work. But so I've been panicking a lot lately about money and, maybe I could work in a marketing company. I work as a gardener right now, which 3 days a week. But I'm thinking, I could work in a gardening company, a marketing company, make a bit of money. Maybe that'll help, you know what I mean? Maybe having money will help make these things come true. But I actually don't think that money at this level is as useful as the time that you put into actually honing the craft. I think if you're in your early 20s, whether or not you're in uni or out of uni, I think that it's a mistake if you truly want to do this, I think it's a mistake to gear your life towards money at this point. And I think that what really is calling me towards money is not actually like that I'm like lacking in money or that I need anything else. I make enough to house myself, to feed myself. That's all I need. The rest of the time thankfully I have a lot of time to spend doing art. But I think that it's important to remember that the thing that more often than not is calling me towards money is more of a I can only describe it as like a mimetic desire. It's that other people have money. And I think, geez, that's pretty good. And I think that is something that you have to be very mindful of, because a lot of people, and you see it in a lot of adults, completely are just absolutely miserable because of the mindset that they have to have or be at or compare themselves to other people. Philosopher Rene Girard has a theory on this called mimetic theory. I'm not that well versed in it, but it is essentially like the crux of it is that like the things we often want are things that we see in people who have a fullness, who have what we perceive as a fullness of life, and that we associate that fullness with their car or their wife or their job or their house, these objects. We take the objects in their life and we associate their fullness of life with these objects. And I think that's a very sort of natural thing to do. And like I said, this video is just for me. It's for no one else. So if you're not me, it's not for you. But I think it's important to remind yourself that the thing you're looking for in this work, and even in the, you want money, you want to be successful, but the thing you're looking for is beyond just what material worth will give you. Like, that's not, that it, to you, that is a bonus, but it's not, that's the cherry, but it's not the sundae. I think that I've found that in any work that I've done, I've either been in any film work or any writing work or anything like that, you're either expelling something or inviting something into your life, which is why it's important to practice writing your fears and writing the ugly parts of yourself, because I think that you expel that stuff. Once you put it on the page, once you even just once you write it down, but once you film it, once you make these fears and neuroses a reality, they seem to disappear from you. But as well as this, when you write what you want in life, I think that Alan Moore called it a hypervigil. Like, these things, they come into your life. And I've already started to find that. Even with this like film that I've been writing for months now, it's half of, first off, it's the film that I want to watch, which I think is step one, but it's also half of my shadow and what I want in life. And I found both the dynamic of those things within me have changed or shifted, which is proof in and of itself that the work that you want to do is satiating you on a higher level than just being able to afford a BMW 3 Series. And so that goes back to Bowie. You know what I mean? You do the work to find out who you are and how you relate to the world around you. Now, how does one build an audience and have a career? I don't know. But I think that this is connected to the idea of writing what's ugly about you and what you want to invite into your life. Because I think that in both those things, if you're sincerely honest with both of them, then whoever does see your work, I mean, immediately you'll resonate with people. I think the more honest you are, Hemingway said, write one true sentence. I think the more honest you are, the more that people will be able to relate. The subjective becomes objective. People relate to that. And in terms of getting it out there, I think it's just showing it. But I think it's also, I don't think the aim of the game is to appeal to as many people as possible. I was listening to the radio at work the other day. Whatever the 100.3, whatever the radio, we were listening to pop music. And, you listen to pop music every year. Like in 2014, for example, it sounded a lot more like techno and dubsteppy, because those were the subgenres that were alive at the time, and it infected the pop genre. Pop sort of culture, especially like very ultra pop culture, with like super sort of like shallow surface level, the stuff on that's playing 50,000 times a day on the radio. It's always going to be a reflection of what is actually going to be remembered in the culture at the time. So like in the early 2010s, I mean, that was like dubstep, Skrillex, that was a thing. And, a Justin Bieber song will reflect that. And the Justin Bieber song will be remembered, but I don't think it'll ever be a staple of the time as much as that subculture will be. It's kind of like in the 60s, we remember, I mean, the Beatles were huge. The Beatles were everywhere, but there was also 50,000 rip-off Beatles bands, the Hollies, the Monkees, and, these people all have like a place in the canon, but they also got probably just as much radio time as the Beatles, though they didn't have the longevity, because the Beatles allowed themselves to change, whereas a lot of these other bands, they kept to that formula. They stayed as the reflection, whereas the original changed. It's like even like Zeppelin and stuff. Like how often do you think Black Dog was playing on the radio in the 70s at like 10 in the morning? I don't think so. So my point in saying that is that it's not valuable in terms of cultivating a long-term audience to try and pander to as many people as possible. I think that it's better to make your exposure as much as possible and then have an audience of like, find 6 people that like your work. Start with that, who will follow you as your work develops and as you develop. And, that's 6, that's a small number, but that could turn into, if you have 300 people willing to pay $5 to watch your short film, 3 times 5, that's $1,500. That is almost enough to pay for the film itself. And that's the good thing about this industry. There's so much money to lose. It's amazing. It's almost impossible to make money, but it's so easy to lose it. So it takes money to make work. It's impossible to make money. You're not chasing money, but you need money to live. Who would do this? Who would live this life? I guess me. I guess I'm just a crazy guy. All right, well, let's go even deeper then. Let's really bring it. If let's practice what we preached. Let's go over the real neurosis, the real reason I'm making this. The other day at work, I was pulling weeds, and I was thinking, oh boy, I really got to figure something else out here. Keep in mind, I've also been blocked for this thing I've been writing for a while, and I'd written a very weird short film, which I think is good, but I was scared to show. So there was a lot of things undulating under the surface, and I was obsessing with the belief that because this is what my life is now, which I'm enjoying, but that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be 30. And I think that there's an aspect of that that's true, and that nothing will have changed. And first off, change is always happening. The more you work, the more action you take, your life will change. I don't think any action is ever wasted, even if it is sitting in your room for 12 days straight writing. I don't think any action is ever wasted like that. But I read something which I think is maybe good for artists to know when they're not only when they're making work, but when they're showing work. I read it in the it's one of the core principles of the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu text, which is to do your dharma, to follow your dharma, which is essentially in this context, to do your work and all sides of it, promotion, creation, revision, all of that, to do it without being tied to the outcome. It's also called outcome independence in certain sects. And I think that is invaluable invaluable, it's valuable, it's useful for artists, because I think that we can get so tied to whatever shade of blue is painted on the canvas that we spend far too long on it and obsess over it even once the thing should be complete. You know what I mean? And I think this even extends to reviews. I mean, you want people who you trust to give you good criticism on your work, but but it is that thing of you have to be a worker. You have to finish it. You have to just, at a certain point, you have to just do the job and let it go. And it can be useful in that regard. I think that can be a very useful trait of life, to just think about following your own dharma, the actions that you're supposed to take in this life, and sort of letting all the rest go. You know, they call it the veil of Maya, which is the sort of illusion of the material world. And this is where, and I'm going to go into some philosophy here, because there's sort of mixed ideas on exactly what the world is in our relationship to it, on what we perceive in our relationship to it. And I think that if you are alive, you're always going to be somewhat tied to outcomes and actions and pleasure and pain. But I think that the it's kind of like the Stoic idea of like you don't tie the entire fabric of your being to, oh, only 2 people liked my film rather than 3,000, you know. It's the Stoic idea of what can you take in and what can you. I'm completely lost here. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. Let's put it in summary because I'm rambling now. Focus on your work, understand why you're doing it, and let go of comparing yourself to other people. Let things unfold, let things flow, and just because someone that you're friends with got a new car and is in a different place in life doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be successful in the thing that that's you feel like is calling out to you. And yeah, stay classy.